All right, good morning, everyone. Just see there's a couple of people still trying to get themselves connected to audio. So keep an eye on that, and I'll continue to let people in as they arrive. But in the meanwhile, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our first webinar of 2025. I guess we've hit two New Years. It's 2025, and the Lunar New Year is also right now. So, Year of the Snake, which I think is supposed to be good. I heard it's supposed to be a year to let go of bad energy. So I feel like that's probably something we could just maybe it's just me, but I feel like that's a good year to be in. So I'm Kimberly Lang. I'm Senior Specialist with the First Nations Health Directors Association. Jeannie Parnell, our member coordinator, is also with us, waving there. And we're just really pleased to see so many of you on the line today, and to welcome Dr. Unjali Malhotra, who is here to talk to us about birth sovereignty and all that exciting stuff. Some of you may have been here in the past, and Unjali is a repeat customer for us for webinars. So really excited to have her back to continue with this conversation. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Anjali.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back. I appreciate it, and it's really nice to see everyone. So I'm gonna dive right in. I have some slides, and then we can have some discussion after that. Um, please. So I'm hoping everyone can see the slides. So I'm Unjali. I am calling in as an uninvited occupier on Silk's territory, and I'm very grateful to be here with my husband and my daughter, and who's 10 going on 35, and my little fur baby Ellie, who we have her at a friend's house today. She's a best friend, and they've been playing for the last couple of, I guess, day. And yesterday when we got back from my daughter's karate class, we were like, "Where's Ellie jumping on us?" Because she's just a puppy and she's so cute. So I'm missing her a little bit today because she's a little play date. But everyone needs one. And then yeah, I'm just really grateful to be a part of this work, and I'll be sharing sort of what we've been doing over the past couple of years. Some of it I've shared with you already, and much of it might be new. And then I look forward to some conversation at the end. So what we've been doing over the past 2 years in particular is trying to have as many conversations as we can. So for with yourselves, with one-on-one conversations. We've had quite a number of one-on-one conversations. I think last year we had about 35 one-on-one conversations with community members. We're very frank in stating that this is just the beginning. We can certainly say to people, having 2 years of engagement and speaking to 50 people is a lot, but it really isn't. And we still have a lot of work to do on engagement. And we look forward to doing more, and we look forward to having more conversation within regions that are going to serve unique needs and voices within communities themselves. But so far, we've spoken to First Nations elders, life givers, and healthcare providers. We have also spoken to, sort of in parallel of this, as health authority leads. We've had many conversations with the PSBC steering committee, and other partner groups like Child Health and pediatric groups as well. So what we're really hoping is that we have almost like a landing spot for voices right now, that we have a little bit of a safe space for folks, so we can say, we're here to hear, and we're here to get as many as voices as possible. So this is sort of one marker in time of doing that in a long journey of time of collecting voices and stories. So in spring last year, we actually released some of the calls to action that had been provided to us at the beginning of May. So over the course of those 2 years, we started to see something surface in some of the conversations we were having that were consistent. And we were like, well, I think we should start ensuring that we are accountable for these voices and making sure that we have ongoing conversations with people who can make the changes that are being asked for. So this is again, a marker in time in a longer journey. But in this time, we wanted to make sure we didn't listen to people's voices and then it's years later before something is done about it. So instead, we chose to create an interim report, which is this, and create some calls to action from what we had been told so far. In the spring, we brought together community leaders and leaders from government, from health authorities, from health improvement networks, and others to start to have some of these conversations in very pointed fashions. So I'll get to some examples of what that looks like as we go. And then we had further conversations with people over the sort of years. So we've had a number of them, and again, I'll go through that a little bit more in detail over the course of the year to again keep these pointed conversations going, but also making sure that's on everyone's mind as time goes by. In December 2024, we released a lot of the stories themselves. I want to be really clear that these are unedited stories. So anything that was told to us has been approved by the person that gave it to us for the use that we are using it for in the words that were provided to us. We didn't paraphrase, we didn't shorten, we didn't curtail, we didn't change anything. So you'll notice that although it's only a few chapters, the book is 70 pages. So it's a lengthy read in that sense, but that is why. And we don't plan on changing any stories go forward. We want to make sure that things are heard in the voice that they were provided to us in. So that set of stories was released as Answering the Call in December 2024. Some of the unedited stories that now for the again approved, we have had to curtail some of them or just provided the quotes within some of them, which were individually approved. So as you can see, Elder Doreen Peter was a part of the engagement that we had, and this is really clearly telling a lot of information that we needed to hear, and it was just so enlightening for our partners as well to really hear that, you know, as in British Columbia, we've lost approximately 20 places to deliver your baby in this province over the last 20 years. So with the loss of 20 birthing sites in a province the size of this, what you also lose is knowledge translation. So you lose people coming to community, living in community with the expertise of sexual reproductive health care, pre and postnatal care, and delivery care. So you lose all of that. And it was made very clear to us that that is a piece of information that we need to take forward to community leaderships and delivery centers. How do we ensure that things aren't siloed and that information isn't siloed and it's still getting back to community? How do we build those relationships and trust? How do we ensure that people are able to have face-to-face conversations at some points in their reproductive care journey whenever needed? And it's not something that is just a sort of quick in and out type of circumstance, but relationships can be built in that context because these are obviously very intimate conversations at times. And I think it's important for us to make this very aware of people. One of the topics that came up quite consistently within the conversations that we had was actually surrounding feeding and the resources and available pieces for folks to succeed at breastfeeding. It was interesting to hear how many of the people that we spoke to stated that there was lack of resource in community for culturally safe feeding resources and support. Now, where this really came into play is since most people are now evacuated for the delivery, that transition of care when someone's being brought home resulted in a lack of feeding resources as that transition, which is very, very challenging. You're now traveling for a day or two to get back home, and it interrupts feeding processes. And what does that look like when you get home, and what's available at home? And so this was one that came up repetitively within the stories. Transport was another one that came up quite frequently within the stories. Within the voices, and of course, you know, this is something that I think we can all say there is much room to improve on the transport of our pregnant moms. One of the big things was, of course, the lack of leadership in transport that is First Nations leadership, the lack of communication between community and transport. And we've had pointed conversations with BC Emergency Health Services and FNHDA Transport, and we have brought them to the table in one of the sessions that I began to mention have been occurring. And interestingly, particularly the communication piece was something that they didn't realize was such a big issue, which we can all find quite shocking, but was very clearly highlighted as a significant priority that needed to incur change. And so we've been having ongoing conversations with them to see how that can move forward. And ensuring that we have on the ground voices as a part of those conversations as well with the leadership. The role of elders in delivering has come up many times as well in the conversations that we had. I think it's been made really important to our system partners to say, you know, if someone is going to be evacuated for their delivery, when they are received at a site, it should still feel like there is a home base for them, that there is culture, that there is ceremony, that there is someone that is able to make them feel safe and that kind of has their back, that is there, but also importantly, someone that can offer the ceremony and offer whatever this person needs to feel like their delivery isn't necessarily one that's been evacuated. How do we work towards having that in place? And we've been working again with system partners to ensure that their programs are being built up, and importantly, that their elders are treated well, that their elders have the resources and supports they need. There was a great deal of discussion in the time period of 2023-2024 among substance use and pregnancy. This is a top priority in the Office of the Chief Medical Officer. We're at the same response level as we were with COVID. So this is something that's top of our minds and work. And it did come up many times within the conversations, and the need for education and resources within community when it comes to substance use. Now, this is something we brought together, the FUR program, for example, at BC Women's. We've brought together some of our PHSA leadership. We brought together others that have programming in place that people have to be evacuated to. Now, how do we move those services to community? How do we ensure that there's more conversation that's back and forth to community? And how do we strengthen relationships and conversations with people who are day to day in community? And how do we ensure those people that aren't going to be evacuated to these locations to receive care are still safe and cared for in community? And what does that look like? So we've been having those pointed conversations. There is also the formation of the Provincial Substance Use and Pregnancy Working Group. And so I've been sitting on that. And I think it's been a great opportunity for me to share the stories. I didn't share one of the stories that's in our book on here, but I really encourage you to read it because it is a First Nations birther who uses substances, who so bravely shared her story of what resources she needed, got, and what that looked like. There are also, of course, people who are working in the field as well as a part of that chapter as well. So I think it's one that's to be highlighted in the conversation. Another thing that came forward repeatedly was the role of doulas within birthing, particularly in evacuation births. I know what Janelle says here about the doula being that extra set of eyes. Now, I think that's vital, and I think that's really important, but it's also important to know, and this was brought up, I know Tanya Dick and others brought this up as well, that the goal should be that we don't need protections when someone's in a hospital or care setting. Like, we should be targeting the racism and the risk of sterilization and the risk of harm when someone's in the unit that they're being taken to. And the doula should really just be there for emotional support. And so I want to highlight that that's been heard and is documented as well in this document as well, so that our partners can really see the importance of groups like Sherry DeLallo's group at Women's, that is an anti-Indigenous racism steering group, and the work that they're doing to have the receiving site be a safe space. And so really working with their partners there. As mentioned, the loss of delivery sites has been quite profound over the last 20 years when we look at how many delivery centers have closed. So we do have this map within the document as well to really show what's been lost. And so I think it's important for us to consider when we step back that yes, we've lost the ability to deliver in a center, but what we've also lost, as mentioned, is all of the service that comes with that. So all that expertise, all of those leadership roles, all of those services are taken out when a delivery site is removed. And that includes sexual health and reproductive care, but it also includes pediatrics. It also includes like neonatal care. It includes a lot of things that get lost. So how do we build things in a way that's right for each community? What does that look like? And that is again where we say, this is just a beginning of what we've heard, and we need far more engagement that's more on a community and regional level. This is sort of a provincial outlook, and these stories are a beginning of where we go and where we head here with our partners. When we heard from community, we heard that there's an urgent need to improve pregnancy-related care related to the toxic drug crisis, social determinants of health, and racism and discrimination. There's a need for knowledge exchange for reproductive health services closer to home. So there's pre and postnatal care and sexual health and reproductive services need to be strengthened. The increased connection between transport and delivery sites and communities, and understanding an elevated nurse-full care. And this has been something that I've been sharing widely, that it's always important to remember that there's not one person involved in the delivery. There's always many, many people involved in the delivery of care, because it starts from the time you get a period to the time you stop having periods. Like, this is a long journey in someone's life, and there's a lot of knowledge and expertise that needs to come. And it doesn't always come from the physician. It comes from nursing, from family members, from community members, from passed along stories, from many things. And that all has to be respected and elevated in the care circle in a way that it really hasn't been in the past. So this is just a visual summary of what I've already told. So far, we've done some calls to action with our system partners. As I mentioned, we wanted to make sure that we were accountable as fast as possible. We didn't want the stories to sit for any length of time. So we did call partners together over the last year, again, with permissions from those who have shared their stories and how we would do that. And so what we did was, we didn't have, going into it, sort of a baseline framework for what this document would look like. To make sure that the stories created the document. And from the stories, we then created some calls to action for our system partners. Of course, including upholding inherent rights and self-determination of BC First Nations, increasing the availability of services in community and closer to home, addressing Indigenous specific racism and discrimination, particularly at evacuation locations, prioritizing the social determinants of health and reproductive care. And that again has a lot to do with evacuation and the need for more supports for people to, if they are going to have to be or desire to be evacuated, are the supports effective and appropriate? So we need to really hone in on that. So when we consider upholding rights, it's of course related in many communities, not all, but many, about birthing closer to home. And that again is it right for a community or is it not? It should be the community's right to say yes or no, and what that looks like. And so more conversation on what that looks like needs to occur. Involving First Nation communities in transport planning. This is a critical piece. We consider how many people are being evacuated. The conversations have to be respectful, they need to be inclusive, and they need to be specific to the community. And so that's been really important to highlight. And I think that's one of the key pieces within this work so far that we've been able to work towards. Improving communication pathways is again related to transport at our nursing stations. Increasing availability of services in community. And again, this isn't necessarily related to the delivery itself, but sexual health and reproductive services and pre and postnatal care. And this really was highlighted in all the people that talked about feeding and substance use. How do we support that lengthened time in that journey within community better? Increase accessibility to pre and postnatal services, strengthening First Nations relationship with referral centers. So if people are wanting or need to be evacuated, how do we ensure that there's more interplay and conversation between the place they're going and the place they're coming from? And that back and forth needs to be strengthened. Dedicating transport that has met child teams and services. This was obviously a bigger ask to transport, but we made it, and we're working with them to see what that looks like go forward. And of course, the opening of birthing homes when appropriate and when a community wishes to have that happen, how do we support that to occur? When we talk about addressing Indigenous specific racism, of course, the protections of hiring more doulas and Indigenous liaisons, but really addressing the root cause of the fact that this shouldn't be happening, and we need to ensure that our partners are aware. Sometimes it's in maternity care, thought this is a safe space for people, but I think the brave Joyce Echaquan made it very clear that mat child care is the same as any other part of the hospital. That can be a very unsafe place. And so how do we work towards that not being the case? And how do our system partners work towards that? Creating process of integrating elders within the birthing and maternity units, and making sure that there's, of course, an encirclement of cultural safety and dignity, but also ceremony and what would make someone feel comfortable within their journey of being at that location. Ensuring evacuation procedures, and this is really that transition of care and making sure that's culturally safe, and that these practices are really embedded within the hospitals, and particularly related to discrimination and stigma. And a big part of the conversations that we had was, of course, related to substance use and stigma in pregnancy, and really having a number of conversations with our system leaders about how profoundly important it is to address that as quickly as possible. On our team, Karina Chase has done incredible work on stigma and substance use in pregnancy, and we're really highlighting and uplifting that work. Of course, evaluating consent procedures, and now we have released, I don't think I came to tell you about that, but we did release a guide for providers on consent. So I led that work at the in 2024 as well. It was posted on the OCMO site, and I have done a number of grand rounds on it for providers to see that consent is the core issue at hand, and it needs to be addressed effectively and quickly. We did have incredible influence on the regulatory body's consent requirements as well. So it is enacted as a regulation change for physicians and surgeons. So that's really good. And then as far as the bill for making coerced sterilization illegal and a crime, that is now going on to Parliament. So it has passed through Senate now as an update there. Important to prioritize social determinants of health. Of course, a key way is in the journey forward is to ensure embedded First Nations voices in leadership on the highest levels, and establishing more culturally safe programs and having comprehensive community services available. Improving and expanding healthcare provider education and training. We've had a lot of conversations with UBC, SFU, and BCIT on educational pieces here. So how are we ensuring that future learners and current learners are receiving the training and education that they need on the topics that were brought forward, particularly surrounding substance use and pregnancy? So as mentioned, we had some calls or some forums for the calls to action to be presented. So we've invited small sessions at a time. So we've tried to keep them as tight as we can to ensure conversation is really pointed at the calls to action, and that we get yeses and nos right there. Hoping for more yeses than we'll sees. And I think it's been a really positive way to move forward. We do need, of course, a broader group to come back together to ensure that people are all on the same page, and if someone's not necessarily directly involved, even their indirect involvement and voice is still heard within the conversations. So we've spoken to government, transport leadership, health authority leadership, health improvement networks, providers, including pediatrics, and I highlight that because often that's not a part of the mat child conversation in the way that it necessarily needs to be, but in this case it really does need to be. We have a transport crisis when it comes to pediatrics right now. We have NICU shortages. We have all kinds of issues that we need to be working with and around. And then FNHA regional teams and leadership. So the overall messages that we received were surrounding access protections, and then really surrounding pre and postnatal care being the number one. Knowledge translation opportunities for communities and increased education to ensure that that's occurring, particularly again related to substance use in pregnancy, and the connection between transport and communities and social determinants of health. So I thank you, and I will stop sharing, and we can have a conversation. And I thank you for listening to me.
Thanks, Unjali. There's a number of people on the call, so I feel like if you want to say something, if you just raise your hand, that'll bring you up to the top of the participant list using the raise hand feature, and that will help us to know. Jolly, I just want to say that there's been a couple of comments in the chat. One is just appreciating the feedback related to training more people to become doulas and midwives closer to home, or ideally in at home in community. So just a shout out for that. And then there was also a comment about when we're talking about birthing centers and I guess where women are giving birth, that there's a need for safe locations other than hotels for women who are not able to give birth at home. And this also does relate to some patient travel, medical transportation. It's a larger conversation about the safe places for people who are having to travel for any kind of medical care to land. Screening elders for safety, which is also a larger conversation, but definitely comes into this conversation. And then courses for interested individuals in the doula program. So that, I think, is what is there. And also I did drop the link to the FNHA website page where the report is housed. So if anyone wants to go, you can download it directly from there. And Maureen, sorry, Vanessa, I see Maureen has her actual physical hand raised, which I noticed first, and then Vanessa.
Just 1 second. I just want to reply to that one. So one, absolutely, 100%. The entire transport experience needs to be overhauled and fixed. There's no question. And Lucy Barney was our cultural lead on this, and she walked with me on the whole journey, which I'm so appreciative of. And we repeatedly brought forward within this, the safety of elders has to be a critical piece. When we're saying there should be more elders, there's a lot of caveats that go with that. And Marian Erickson was also a big part of the creation of this work and continues to be. And so her work on the creation of community-based doula programs, I just want to highlight all of those pieces and those names and elevate those names. And I'm so honored to have worked with them on this. So thank you. Anyway, Vanessa or Maureen, I don't know.
Thank you. Thank you. I just wanted to clarify my comment about the hotels, because for patient travel, if there's one of our women are at high risk, then they have to, and they're remote, then they go somewhere, usually to a hotel to be close to a hospital for care. And then, so that brings up the larger issue of patient travel, which we're also dealing with. So there just needs to be that weaving all of these areas throughout all of these upcoming programs and hubs that are being developed, etc. So we all know what each other is doing. I guess that comes through the gathering of wisdom, but I'm really interested in learning about what are the courses and which university, etc., that we can have our younger interested people in the doula program. Where do we find that, right? Thanks, Pat.
Thank you, Maureen.
Do you want to speak to that at all, Unjali, or?
Yeah, like as far as the training piece, that's what we're working with Marian Erickson on quite in-depthly and trying to figure out what that looks like. What we really want to ensure is that any programming that is created and sponsored and funded is within community. People aren't necessarily traveling for the care very much or for the training very much, as well as that it's actually First Nations people being trained. And that's been sort of like some of the concerns that we've had so far. So right now, it's a bit of I think a turning point in what this all looks like as far as the doula programming and training. And so I know that a lot of communities have taken it on themselves really successfully, and that's been pretty amazing. But how do we ensure that communities can do that, and what does that look like? So I'll get back to you. So, thank you, Maureen.
Vanessa?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for your presentation, Dr. Unjali. Sorry, just trying to push all the different buttons that we got going when it's our turn. I think just because we had a Vancouver Island patient travel focus group yesterday, a lot of this is um, right on the top of my mind. But I think
Oh,
Oh, you're back.
yeah.
Oh, but we can't hear you. It's okay. It doesn't look like you're on mute. Just something went weird with your settings. Okay, now you're muted.
She's coming back.
I think she's saying that if there's someone else who has something to say, she'll be back with us in a minute.
I feel for
Ah,
Vanessa. I almost couldn't get on today, so I totally feel for you.
yeah, things it also I feel like we're in this like new kind of world where if you jump on Teams first thing in the morning and then try to change to Zoom, like it Teams just steals all your settings and Zoom can't have them or vice versa. It happens a lot. Anyways.
It's so true.
Yeah. We'll let Vanessa jump back in when she's ready but just does anyone else Maureen has put another note I see about will the trauma informed care opportunity for training or learning be provided for First Nations? Is that about the doula training, Maureen?
Yes, because we're finding that we are dealing with issues around, decolonization and how colonization impacted our people and how we can raise the standards of uh, what Doreen Peter talks about, bringing our Snowiath back into our practice of health service delivery and all of that good practice that we do in terms of Snowiath and building that into our framework. So, but what it's being called, I don't know much about it because I need to enroll it in it for myself as well, but is the trauma informed care so that we're not bringing harm to our own people. So we have to do a lot of self healing as well. So how do we, is there going to be something like that, or is that part of the training? And how can we just get a head start for our own people that are interested in a dual program training and just get them into that mindset?
Yeah, like in curriculums that have been created so far by Marion, for example, as one, not the only one. Yes, trauma-informed care is a part of that training program, and it is meant to be for community, delivered in community. That's the goal. Yeah. Jessica?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, now I can. First, I could see you but not hear you, and then I could hear you but not see you, but now both. They're coinciding.
Great. Thank you for the invite and your presentation and on this important piece of, life giving for all First Nations communities and, with us being colonized in all our systems for, I always say 160 years because since first contact and, we've been struggling with a lot of systems that broke us, especially, the Indian residential schools where, a lot of our lives have been lost and our populations have dropped. And, we have our baby boomers and all of that. And we all know those pieces, right? As healthcare workers here for all our First Nations communities. But I just wanted to mention a few things here is, we have a doula in our community, which is really amazing. I'm not sure if you had a chance to talk with her or not regarding this document, but when I have several conversations with her and she receives these grants to be able to support our members that are currently going into labor and being there as a doula support for the family and being on call 24/7 for a couple of weeks at least. And she enjoys that position. But I think what I'm coming down to is, the her position in the nation is kind of a little bit complicated, and it's hard to kind of tie her position in the nation because she gets grants, and then she also gets paid by the nation, and then so there's that bit of I think we want to call it conflict of interest because she has to either take that pay or pay it back to the nation or take time off, and especially if it takes a lot of time. And I think before pandemic, I want to mention as well is, we're such a huge community here, and her position can be a full-time position. And like before, I think we used to have at least 50 births a year in our community. And so right now she's kind of like a small portion of her responsibilities is doulas. I'm not sure if all communities is the same as mine, but we all have, I mean, we have low birth rates. Right now we're looking at 5 to 10 a year now. So it's a huge drop in our pregnant mummies in our communities. And it's I don't know if it's because of what you just presented today, and or our baby boomers are, just like, I'm not having kids because of the systems, because of the toxic drug crisis, because of pandemic, and a lot of those different pieces. And most of the time, our families are shipped out to Vancouver a few weeks in advance and then they're away from home, and so I just wanted to kind of mention those few pieces, and I'm glad that this call has been put forward, and being able to talk about this and hearing the life stories as well. And I'm sure, you can write a big book this thick about, personal stories, and I'm glad to hear those and read those personal stories from our First Nations people. But I just kind of want to mention all those pieces that kind of trigger when I was looking at your presentation and looking at your document as well. And so thank you for allowing me to share.
Oh, thank you, Jessica. I really appreciate your sharing and your words. And you're right, the document could be like the largest document because anyone who has given birth will share like quite a profound story. Like all of us have a story, and so what is that story? And so it's humbling to be the ears on it. It's humbling to have been a part of listening to the stories. One of the things I know, Brenda, you have your hand up, because I'm going to point this in your guys' direction. One of the stories I really want to highlight within the document is actually from Brenda's region, about how things could work and move forward. And so I might go to you first, and then we can go from there. So I'll open it to you, Brenda.
Good morning, Anjali. Hello, everybody. I'm Brenda Ewan, and I'm the research lead for the Cowichan preterm birth study. And I'm second generation Chinese settler on the land of the Cowichan peoples, Cowichan Tamil. So I just thought I would pop up and because I was listening to somebody talking about training for Indigenous people specifically when supporting birth. So there is, or there has been, birth worker training specifically for Indigenous birth workers offered in Victoria at the Victoria Native Friendship Center. So I found a poster from 2023, but they've previously teamed up with the Nesting Doula Collective to offer Indigenous birth workers on the South Island training and collaboration to support birth and postpartum families. So I just thought I'd pop in to say that. And I can send you guys a link to the old poster as well. And then also, I'm not sure if folks are aware, there is a doula program for Aboriginal families. It's a grant that's offered to any Indigenous families that are seeking a doula, but maybe need financial support for that. So I'll plug a link in for that as well.
Thanks, Brenda. And along with all that amazing information, in the Cowichan region, we do have a story highlighted of a really positive birthing experience, and what that looked like. And it did include transport as well as services at home and what that interplay looked like. And so I want to highlight that amazing work that has happened on the island and continues to happen and grow on the island that we fully support. And I'm grateful for both yourself and Jennifer joining us today. So thank you.
Just want to highlight, on your list of the top things that you hear about, transportation is definitely a theme for us for today. Absolutely. So Vanessa did drop in the chat what her microphone would sort of not allow her to say, which has to do with just the way that patient travel in general is handled, and it ends up being sort of an exception. And so for moms who are evacuated, multiple weeks, there's a reapplication process because you can only be, approved. And so sometimes you have people who are going through all of that stress and having to change hotels or all of that kind of stuff because you can only do it like, a week at a time. And you're waiting until the last minute for the extension of your exception for travel. So, hopefully I summarized that. Okay, Vanessa, I'm sorry. I should have just read what you wrote, but I did. But I didn't. And then also, Arlene Edwards is also on the line, and her microphone is also just like not letting her speak to us. So she's also dropped in that, for her perspective as a health worker in her community, if she has a prenatal mom who has been evacuated, she still has a responsibility for care, or, and so she may have, a 2-hour drive to wherever it is that this person, is evacuated to, in order to go and do her follow-up visits and to carry on with providing her care. And so that's sort of another nuance to the issues with travel, which I'm sure you've heard before about when people are evacuated, then the community is left having a very difficult time continuing their support. So.
Yeah, it's so interesting because as we were having these conversations, in almost every conversation there was sort of an embedded conversation on how much goes into a delivery, like how many people are involved in the success of this delivery, and what does that look like, and what is the time commitment, and what is the strain on a community related to what's going on. And it's really being impressed to system partners to say, actually, cases like this exactly happen every single day where care still goes on, and it's by more than one person. We're always focused on that's delivering hands when it's so much bigger than that. There's so many more people involved in the success of a delivery. So I think we couldn't highlight that enough, and we tried to have sort of an area as on the document that really highlighted that, but more so in every conversation I'm having, I'm making sure that it is highlighted to that fact. And a number of those conversations continue to happen with travel, and I will highlight this specifically as an example. So thank you for sharing that.
See any other comments? Brenda did drop a couple of links, so thank you for that, Brenda. This session is being recorded. We aren't going to obviously post, the chat or anything like that, but it will be captured. So if there's something that anyone thinks of later where you're like, oh gosh, I forgot to grab those links or something like that, please feel free to drop us a line at FNHDA. It's FNHDA at FNHA.ca. That's a lot of alphabet soup there. So I'll put that in the chat too, but just feel free to drop a line to us and we'll be happy to sort of reshare the links or anything if you if you need us to do that for you later. Sorry, I can't talk and do it at the same time, apparently. There we go. Unjali, is there I think you mentioned that this is an interim report on the pathway, just to make sure that you kind of didn't to honor, the sharing that you'd heard from people, and feeling that if you've collected all these stories, you didn't want to have them sitting in the vault for too long before we got them out there, which I think is really great. Is there a pathway for further sharing from community, or sort of what, maybe you could speak a little bit to what the next sort of steps are?
Yeah, so right now we're still sort of deeply embedded on the small group discussions about what's come forward from what we've heard. I think what we're doing at the moment is we're trying to graphically summarize a lot of what's happening so that we can have something again to share back from that as soon as possible. So those are in the works as well. Whether we would put out another large report like this is probably not how we'll do it. Like, we'll probably have smaller sort of summaries of what goes forward now, and what that looks like, that are more pointed towards each topic, and what that looks like. If another topic arises, of course, we can do the same with that. But we're really focusing on these conversations now that really enact the changes at this stage. Now, the changes could need more voices, and that's absolutely will be targeted and a part of the conversations go forward. But we're sort of just opening it up a little bit in a different way right now as far as how it goes forward. And we do so far have 2 infographics in the works about the engagement sessions that have happened since with healthcare system partners and what that looks like. And we use this as a part of conversation as well to keep it going. But then as we have conversations like this, we want to make sure these voices are also a part of that. So we want to keep it sort of as a fluid process, an evergreen process that just keeps rolling forward. And so I don't know if that's clear or not, but that's where we're at. So.
I also just wanted to mention, it's not exactly it's not really along this same vein, but Doreen Peters, I noticed, was, quoted. And also you mentioned Karina Chase, and Doreen Peters does work alongside Karina, and they have developed the Healing Indigenous Hearts community program, which is meant to be delivered in community to help to support community and family and loved ones of people who are living with substance use, to just help to navigate that space in better. And anyway, yeah, so just sort of wanted to mention that Karina sits in a space that kind of works within the FNHA, but then also within the BC Center for Substance Use. So they are, I'm not really sure what their timeline is for sort of rolling that out in community, but that is just something that, as we're talking about the larger issue of helping to support our community members and loved ones who are living with substance use, that's a good resource there too. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, hands up to Karina and Doreen. It's been incredible work. So.
Sorry, go ahead.
Hi. Thank you for the presentation and the report. Just going through it, and I'm Dakas from the interior BC, well, northern BC, and so I was just looking through the report, and I will look through it again. I just want to ask if there is stories on traditional birthing practices. Just to let you know a little story about my mom, who's 87. She was born by a traditional midwife, which was her grandmother. Her grandmother birthed she was a traditional midwife. And my mom was born on an island in a cabin. We don't know her exact birthday, and she was born on or about December 7th. So, and like as you can imagine, 86 years ago. And she's the last living person in my family who is born in this traditional way. So, those stories are sacred to us, and we all have these stories in our community.
Mhm.
And is there any stories like that in this report?
Mhm. There are stories about traditional birthing from some of the elders that gave us their stories. I'll be honest, Jenny, when what's in the book, and so whatever people wanted to share was in it. And some of it was about traditional birthing, and some of it was this isn't working, and some of it was this is working, and this is what we need to achieve. And so you'll see that when you read through them, that there's reflections of traditional stories, and then there's reflections of one's own story that might have been more recent, or one's mother's story that might have been, some time ago. And so it's I think a very powerful, profound read to go through each of them. So thank you. And next time we'll put yours in.
All right. I don't know, does anyone have anything else that you would like to add? We do have a little time, but also we were saying earlier today, Unjali's like, I don't think I'm going to need 90 minutes. And I said, no health director has ever yelled at us for giving them time back. My joke is that I won't tell, if you don't want me to tell your boss that you got the extra time, I won't tell them either.
Circle of trust.
But do you want to give like that space to if anyone has any further, comments. And it's hilarious because I mentioned healing Indigenous hearts, and then actually Dr. Nell Wyman posted an article on FNHA's website yesterday, dated yesterday, talking about healing Indigenous hearts. So anyways, it just dropped a note. I haven't even read it, but I dropped the link to that in there too. So synergy, there's some sort of universal synergy that's happening. So that's all good. Yeah.
And you can always email me as well. So I'm always available too if you have any further comments. And if you think of something later, by all means, happy to have a chat anytime. So.
Jennifer, did you have a question?
Yeah, I can't find my raise my raise hand button. And so, Anjali, this is just a fantastic report, and I just want to thank you and Lucy and so many who shared their stories. And so I'm Jen, and I work with the Cowichan tribes with Brenda Yoon, Fairley Mendoza, who's on the call, and Elder Doreen Peter, and had the chance to work with late Lydia Seymour as a part of the Cowichan preterm birth study. I'm a fourth generation settler of Western European ancestry. And I just really am grateful for the stories that are in this report. And something that's come up through the Cowichan preterm birth study, which originally was focused on preterm birth and is now expanded to really thinking about returning and reclaiming birth in Cowichan Tummo, Cowichan territory, is really the lack of data has been a really big issue for the study that we're working on. And we've noticed that across the province, there are just a handful of reports on perinatal data for First Nations, let alone Inuit and Métis, where that data just doesn't exist. And so something that we're really calling for as a part of the results of the study is to have more data that's available that's already collected by the province, perinatal data registry data, but really kind of going beyond that is data that matters to First Nations communities and that's delivered to communities and, a regular and timely basis. And I know this won't be new information for anyone on this call, but just as a part of the answering the call work to really push for data would be my hope and my plea, because I think it's really important to document this work, qualitative stories and the numbers. So an example is, I believe right now, if someone accessed healthcare at Sayawathan Health Center, the health center for Cowichan tribes, I don't think that care would be recorded in the perinatal data registry. So we won't know how we're doing. And maybe someone shows that they're not getting any prenatal care, but actually they got all of their care at the health center, and that won't show up on the medical record. And so it won't look like they're accessing care. We won't be able to know if they were accessing a doula and what the outcome of that was. So I'm, yeah, very passionate about data, and I think it can really help to support all of this work. I just wanted to share that today. So thanks again, Anjali, and everyone who's doing this wonderful work.
Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you for the wonderful work you do. It's pretty incredible.
Go ahead, Shelley.
Thank you. I do want to thank Jennifer for bringing that up, because I know that in the interior region, we have a very similar challenges in the fact that our community health nurses have read-only access to the EMR systems that the regional health authorities are using. So I just want to second that it is becoming a significant barrier for our clients. So thank you.
Thank you, Shelley. Noted.
What's it?
There's collagen on top of honey. Sorry, we got a new setup, so I'm sitting behind these chairs that are showy. The owl can't find me because I'm sitting right in front of you guys. So I'll go over there now. See if you can see me. Okay. Yeah, so what I wanted to talk about is, I've been a doula for over 20 years, I think. And we ran a program out here in what's called Healthy Babies, Healthy Families program. And it ran for 15 years, and it was an amazing program. And we had 2 doulas that worked with healthy babies. Right before I became the health director here, I was a CHR, and they did run a program, Aboriginal doula program in Hazelton, and that was amazing. And I had 2 young ladies who from Witset that took the program, and one of them is accessing the program for like the funds, utilizing the funds that are offered, the grants. And she's only had I think she said she's only been in 2 births in the last couple of years. So I think if we combine the pregnancy outreach program with a doula, with, parent groups, that's what I did. And we were one of the only on reserve pregnancy outreach programs. So, and I know that our community, when we shut down in 2011 or 2013, I think, it was a real blow to our community. And I veered off in different directions because my job was done, it was over. And then I got asked to come back to the health center through our band to do the CHR, to fill in for the CHR. And I tried to revamp the program, and it was like starting from scratch again. That's what it felt like. So if we just combine them and keep them running continuously, we could have a really good pregnancy outreach, doula, parent programs. Yeah. That's my 30 years ago. Input. But yeah, we do need more doulas. And my last doula, my last baby is 5 years old now. And my first baby is 35. 33. So, the same. Okay. Now I gotta go back here and turn my mic off.
Well, that program is famous. It was brought up a couple of times in the engagements far and wide, and we actually brought it forward to the revamp of the Nurse Family Partnership that's coming at some point, and have been discussing sort of a program that would relate to it as the provincial revamp of that program. So we'll see what happens, but it's been elevated, and we were very impressed with the program and would very much like to see it elevated on a provincial scale. So it's been heard.
Okay, so we're just leaving more time for any other questions at this point. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Janie Parnell. I work with the First Nations Health Directors Association as the member coordinator. So, and co-facilitating. Lots of interesting questions. If anyone has any other burning questions, comments, a story they want to add, please go ahead. Maureen, I know you look like you have something interesting you want to say to us.
Siam, HKSIM, HKSIM, Nasia, Siam, Nasalflan, Siam, Schwatlaqua, and Thessalomia, Neat and Ashkautan, Quamlach, Quamlat, Quamatson, Penalachet. Yes, I'm Maureen Wilson, and I'm the health director at Halitan Health Society. We're serving Layaxin and Halal't to marvelous nations that I appreciate serving. And we have, it just makes me start thinking, how many prenatals do we have? And within both of our nations, and then how are we best serving them? But on what's on my mind right now is creating and ensuring that we have a healthy workspace for our people and our employees so that we best serve our community citizens, our member citizens. And so how we're doing that right now is, and it relates to all of the health authorities programs and projects, but also accreditation. But it's really based on our SNOIAS and our framework, the service delivery that we want to create our own standards here at Halitan Health Society. So how we're doing that right now is we are all taking training together as teams with first aid. Some people are still certified, but those of us that weren't are getting certified. Food Safe, WMIS, all those basic certificates that we need to have as health center employees, we're getting those in place. But what the most recent that we are dealing with is around our and these are not our words, but bullying and harassment in the workplace. So we want to turn that into a positive and do that paradigm shift to embracing our SNOIAS, our teachings, our natural laws that I say have never failed us. They've worked since time immemorial. And we want to bring that and make sure we live that each day at the health center here so that we are healthy employees that are not engaged in any type of harm against one another. So we're working on that as a standard here to make our organization healthy. And then we're also capacity building our current employees in their passion that they have. And this is one of the areas, the doula program, one of our employees is interested. So we thought, well, let's talk about that and let's make it happen. So here we are today, you know, building up the capacity of our employees to meet the needs of our First Nations. And I kind of say our First Nations because we've been so compassionate towards our visitors, but we know that in here on Southern Vancouver Island and BC, these are unceded territories. They belong to the First Nations. And I always remember that saying, BC is Indian land. And I remember that when I was a child and I was like, what does that mean? But now, you know, we know what it means. It's unceded territory. And we acknowledge that when we work each and every day. And the ancestors are always here with us when we work, when we step across that door sill here at our health center. We want to practice to leave things on the doornail and not bring any issues in with us, but not take any issues home with us as well at the end of the day. And that takes a lot of practice, skill practice that I had to do. Because if you think of doulas and their work in community, and it's there could be complications, right? There could be twins, there could be triplets, and all of those complications, the preterm birth, and then how does the doula go home at the end of the day? And it's not even really the end of the day, it's 24/7 for doulas, from what I understand. We don't schedule our births from 8:30 to 4:30. So when they go home at the end of the day, how do they debrief, right? And take good care of self-care. So that's what we're practicing here is self-care. I want our younger employees to really have these necessary skills to be able to best serve our people. And that's why I raised that term keeps slipping my mind, but about not bringing any more harm to our people because of we have to make sure we're healed to the best of our ability to serve our people, especially the sacred ones, the little babies, right? The prenatals, they can hear and feel everything. So we have to make sure that us as support workers and the aunties or, we call each other sisters, et cetera, that we are in the best place possible to help serve that baby that's coming into the world, and that we love them. We exude that love when we serve our people. And that's all based on our Snowiath of our teachings. Every First Nation across BC has the teachings. I worked up north, and one of their Hatla Nation, and one of their Snowiath, their laws is making things right, or making many things right, because there's a singular and a plural. So I really loved that teaching that they practice there in Lusachahoya, making many things right. So here we are today, and I embrace that teaching, but we call it Natsamach, wobbling, working together, making many things right. So we're working on that with this, but we also have to know what our left hand is doing, what our right hand is doing, because patient travel, they're working on their strategy, right? And here we are with maternal child, and we know some of our ladies have to go like to Vancouver for the last 2 weeks being alienated. And that's not the way of our people. Our families support us and give us that love, especially the woman in our lives when we're having our babies. My mom was there in the birthing room, so in the hospital. But one of the things that we never did at the end of the day was share our story, which I'm glad that you collected the stories, because there is trauma in childbirth. I had two of them had to use forceps. So, and what did our traditional birthing mothers, grandmothers use? What did they do? How did they, all of that we're reclaiming. We're reclaiming, and that's good through the doula program. But we also have to make sure our Snowiath is included in that doula training so that we embrace not only our employee with the love and the tools to go forward, but that our members, our woman and the baby can also feel that. So that's what was on my mind. Thank you for whoever encouraged me to talk. Yeah.
Jennifer, are you just unmuted or were you wanting to jump in? I know your hand raised wasn't working.
Oh, no, I'm happy to sit here.
Okay. I get like hyper vigilant. Oh, that person unmuted. It's all good. Thank you for sharing, Maureen, and everyone else for sharing as well. I don't see new questions popping up. So yeah, I don't.
Tim, I
Yeah.
just wanted to say, I mentioned earlier that the Healthy Babies program, we used to take intakes with the moms when we saw them, like a food recall to see how much they're eating and just explain to them what the baby needs. And that really helped because when I started up the program after it shut down in 2013, they hired me to restart it a few years later. And that was one of the things that really helped. I had this mom who stayed home. She was too shy to come out or anything. She was from another community, but she was with one of our members. So I reached out to her. That's why they're called pregnancy outreach. I went to her house. I knocked on her door and I invited her to the drop-in. I didn't tell her to come that day, but I just told her when it was. She slowly started coming. I did food recalls on her. I just checked her weight and after that, she started coming on her own and she had a healthy baby boy. And I thought, oh my God, like we need this back. We need this pregnancy outreach aspect back in for our moms because it showed them how, according to the food guide, the Canada Food Guide, and all the information we have for nutrients for the babies, it showed that through your taking the food recall. And it helped them then just meeting other moms in a group. So I think that was really vital to the program is having that. That's what I noticed. And we don't really practice the healthy babies around here, but we've got two ladies that are going to start working on it that were in my program. They are now going to run the program. So. And then we did have elders come in and talk about their childbirth experience back in the day. We used to have like in the 90s when my grandma was alive, like she would tell stories, or there was another elder that told a story when they had their babies. Like my grandma was a midwife. She used to help deliver babies around our community when like not certified but experienced midwife, you know. That's what my grandma was. And so we had all that back then, and I just feel like we lost a lot because of COVID, because the internet, the social media, moms tend to just learn off of the social media. So one-on-one was good with our moms. And like I said, when I first started this program, I used to walk around because there's no gift cards or vouchers. I used to walk around with a jug of milk and a can of orange juice to give to my moms. And I had 14 moms one year. So I said my fridge used to be full of jugs of milk.
Fantastic.
That's great.
Wanda,
Thanks, Wanda. Go
Wanda,
ahead.
Wanda, I just want to say how I'm just so happy to hear a success story from community. It really sounds like the programs and services that you're offering uh, people and women it really helped. And so, yeah, that's a great success story. Thank you for sharing.
And the reason why you guys see the side of my head is because I'm looking at you guys on the screen there.
Hi, Jeannie. I just wanted to say it's amazing listening to all these wonderful success stories. However, Wet'suwet'en First Nation is a small community. We're about 12 minutes west of Burns Lake, and we don't have the amenities or the conveniences of the larger centers. Our young moms have to travel for 3 hours to give birth. They get referred to either Vanderhoof or Prince George. And so they stay in there a day or two. And if there's complications or high risk babies, they have to stay a little longer. to kind of add to the situation, we've been without a health nurse for probably going on 2 years now. Um, Basically what happens, they're fresh out of school and they train here and then they move on. And that's been the pattern since I've been here for the last 10 years. We did train one of the, we did have one of our CHR just trained to be a birth doula. So I think she just got that maybe a year and a half ago. Anyways, the course happened in Prince George. So we're a community that's not as fortunate as other communities in BC. Having said that, we also, I think, with COVID being done, we had a bunch of COVID babies per se, and then I think within this last year we've had one more baby, and that was probably it. So um, yeah, any care that has to be done, they have to go into probably Burns Lake, but even that, they don't like to, if they see our Harris County family doctors, then they really can't go and see the Northern Health doctor. So it's kind of a two-tiered system. So you got to choose one or the other. And if you choose CSFS, then you have to stick with CSFS. And we do have the doctors coming in on a regular schedule, but maybe 2, 3 times a month is when we'd have a doctor's clinic. So right now we do have a doctor's clinic happening for half a day. So that's basically our community, and um, I don't even think you can even think of birth sovereignty. Like I know back in the day, like what Wanda was saying, our elders did have stories for us and the way things were done. They didn't have doctors, nurses, or hospitals back in the day. They did everything on their own. But nowadays everything is so different, so modernized. Like we wouldn't know what to do if we had a high risk pregnancy, because really none of us are really trained to deal with any of that. And with a shortage of nurses with CSFS, it's really a challenge for us here. So those are my comments and concerns for this topic. Miss I.
Thank you, Ruby. So important. It's been really important for us to ensure that the work that we're doing is inclusive to communities that have a lot of resources that are or have grown a lot of resources, particularly in this area, and those that haven't and can't and don't. And I think stories like yours are just vital to, well, what do we need to do next in each place, and what does that look like? And that's where the sort of the next round of engagement of having more local conversations and having more, as you know, we have a number of people from the province represented, but really narrowing it down on regional and community levels and having these conversations more locally. And I'm so grateful for your voice and your words. So thank you very much, Ruby.
Well, it looks like we've managed to fill our hour and a half anyways, which is fantastic. I love that. I always think that it's really I'd much rather have more time to enable people to think of things to say and to share what's on your mind and in your hearts than to kind of rush you through 5 minutes of questions and have you go away feeling like there were things left unsaid. So I know there's a couple people who've joined us quite near the end here, so apologies that you're arriving just in time for us to say goodbye. But we have recorded this. We are, how does one say this? We're in between web people at the moment, so there might be a little bit of a delay for us to get things up onto our into our webinar library on our website, but it will be there. And of course, feel free to reach out anytime. Oh, I do see one more hand up. Did you want to jump in there again? Sorry.
No worries. I'm giving Neelof the floor.
Hi, Squale. Hello, everyone. My name is Neelak Ironhawk Tommy, and I'm a maternal child health nurse here at Coetzin. I also have the privilege of becoming a doula in this last year for the community, and some of the work that I'm doing to engage or return traditional birthing ways back to the community are with the Aboriginal Doulas for Grant program, and that's where I did my training, and that was at the Friendship Center in Victoria. And so Jackie actually, I don't know if you are all aware, I'm also an Indigenous midwifery student with the National Council of Indigenous Midwives. And so Cowichan Tribes is one of 8 nations across Canada reclaiming the educational model for midwifery in the way that our ancestors handed it down. And so I'm doing all of the learning with elder midwives who are teaching us. And then we'll also, in the end, I'll be writing the exam to be a registered midwife. So part of the doula questions I think that came up were around training and specifically Indigenous focused training for doula work. And so a lot of that work we try to pull in locally, but also we have a few communities like with Nicole Willis, who we will pull in from north to come here to help us with training. And so there has been a grant to extend the doulas for Central Island. And so Jackie wants to come here to Cowichan, and we'll expand that program through the House of Friendship. And then we'll offer that training there before we're aiming towards before the end of April. That will host a training here in Cowichan, and I do have a waiting list of community members who wish to do this training when I have it. So if you guys have anybody that you have in mind that want to be on a wait list or be contacted when I have those dates, that would be great. Also, Brenda just pulled up the National Forum for the Indigenous Midwifery Beyond Birth is the title for the National Council of Indigenous Midwives. I will have the honor of emceeing this event along with my one of my student colleagues, Evelyn Fisher, and she's from Opaskwayak, which is the Paw, Manitoba. So her and I are kind of some of the communities that are a little forward moving in the
Small steps forward.
Small steps forward. So we're working together to kind of create that awareness, and yeah, just so if anybody wants to join the February 25th and 26th forum, they can register for that on the National Council of Indigenous Midwives website. Yeah.
And then how do they reach you if they want to be on the wait list for the doula training?
You can we can put in the chat my work phone number, but also I'm a community member. So if it's community members that I try and chat with all of my nieces and nephews and spread the word. And there are people that are interested in the education model and such that I'm working with. And so yeah, just reach out to me in any way and form. If you see me at the grocery store, say hi. Tell me who you are because I might not remember. But yeah, we'll put in my yeah, there we go. And then if you
do you have your email, Neela?
Yes, do you want to put in my email?
Right, Scott.
Thank you. And again, for anyone on the call, if you missed that, I'll hold on to make sure that anything that is being added to the chat on the way people out is still captured. And so we'll have that information if you need us to resend you any of the links or anything like that later. There we go. Great. And Jolly, did you have any closing comments that you wanted to make?
No, I do not. I really appreciate all the voices in this welcoming place to present the work that we've done, and I appreciate all of you listening and sharing and allowing me to come. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. With that, I hope you all have wonderful days. And I know that I'm looking forward to meeting some of you at our upcoming forum. And the rest of you will see you online in the future. All right. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good day, people.
Bye.